Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame, it's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there to my actual left, as you cannot see on YouTube, unfortunately, is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well. It's been maybe a couple weeks or so. We went on our annual high school basketball mode.
Yep.
For a week. Very recently. We almost forgot what baseball was for a second, but we caught up on everything, and we're ready to do another pod.
Yeah. Things we caught up on included Carlos Correa signing for the third time, and it's actually real this time. He's going to the Twins.
Back to the Twins.
Going back to the Twins, returning for 6 years, $200 million. What'd you think about this signing?
My initial thought was like, wow, he signed at like normal person hours this time.
Yeah.
Because he signed at like 12 in the afternoon.
Right.
His Twins contract last year was signed at like 4 in the morning, or was reported at 4 in the morning. The Giants contract was like 12:30 in the morning, and the Mets contract was like 2 a.m. So it was his first time signing at normal person hours. I wasn't surprised to see it happen so soon because there was no report that the Mets were out up until the Twins signed him. Like, it felt like there was a report coming any day that, oh, the Mets are out, he's a free agent again. We never got that. It was just, we're still seeing what's going to happen with the Mets. Oh, just kidding, he's a Twin.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen the way I thought it would, but I mean, I'm not surprised that he signed immediately. The same thing happened with, he signed with the Mets the day after he was supposed to have his presser with the Giants. So, I mean, yeah, it's not surprising to see that he immediately took an offer.
Yeah. He got, from his original Giants deal, he got 7 years cut off, $150 million cut off. But he's still getting a $200 million contract. It makes me wonder, what this ankle thing is, and, the worst thing, almost the worst thing that'll happen is if he has no ankle issues for the next 6 years.
Yeah, no, if he plays 150 games a year,
yeah,
no problem. He just
right.
becomes Marcus Semien.
Yeah.
This has 700 plate appearances every single year. Like, you could just pencil him in for that.
Yeah. But yeah, in this article that Dan Hayes wrote on The Athletic, he mentioned that, Correa wasn't suspecting that was going to come up. He thought it might have been a different injury, something to do with his back, because I think he's had back problems in the past. But I guess there was something with the ankle, and it alarmed both the Giants and the Mets, two very big market teams. But, ultimately the Twins, keeping a pretty vital part of their team from last year.
Yeah. An important thing to note about the contract in general, there's vesting options for 2029 through 32, so that's an extra 4 years that could be added to that deal. I believe it's also another 85 million or something like that, which is probably the best way to do it. I mean, I'm surprised the Mets didn't do anything like that in their offer, because the ankle was a concern, and this vesting option includes games played
Yep.
appearances. It ensures that he's on the field if he wants to get the rest of that deal, or if he's going to get the rest of that deal.
Right. Yeah. It definitely helps out, especially when you're dealing with someone like Correa, who he has an injury history, and the whole reason why he was coming back to the Twins was because of deals not happening because of a physical thing that was going on.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to think about the Twins getting him, because the Twins are not known for getting big free agents, really, and this is a $200 million deal. It's a pretty big deal. I'm wondering if now the Twins are going to feel more responsibility to put pieces around him.
I would hope so. I mean, they've been active since the deal. We'll obviously get into that later. I mean, this is pretty much just a big Twins episode today. But I mean, what they've already paid Byron Buxton until 2029 as well. They have, as far as like upcoming free agents, it's really just Tyler Mahle for next year. Maybe Sonny Gray, Joey Gallo, Kenta Maeda, but those are all, I mean, I guess kind of question marks as to whether they're a big part of the future.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is a lot of fair concern. The Twins are a team right now that is very homegrown. I think they have like the most homegrown team in the league. Much of their starting lineup right now, with the exceptions of Correa, Joey Gallo, and Christian Vasquez, are guys that they developed. So I mean, now would be the time to get some people from other organizations to build a winning team around Correa while he's here.
Yeah, and the Twins have always been sort of like a mid-market team. Not necessarily with the most cheap with the likes of the Rays, A's, Guardians, but also not close to the top spenders like the Yankees, Mets, Dodgers, Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if having a piece like this, especially maybe if he does really well, particularly this year, kind of inspires Twins ownership to maybe do a little more to build around Correa and potentially build a championship contender.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, they're, especially since they're in a division that doesn't look like there's a lot to look forward to going forward. The Royals, they have a couple pieces, but it feels like everyone that's really a part of their future is already up. Like, who are we waiting for with the Royals that hasn't already gotten Major League time,
True.
And, you're still waiting for Bobby Witt Jr. to grow into a superstar player, for MJ Melendez to, be a little more consistent, and same with Nick Pratto, but I just don't know if it's ever going to be enough with this specific core to really be like a team that you need to watch out for in the future. The Tigers probably still have a few more years. I mean, I think Scott Harris has had a pretty decent first offseason for himself, but, there's still a long way to go with that team. The White Sox have one of the worst farm systems, maybe the worst farm system in the league. And things just have not panned out the way that they were supposed to. And Cleveland's kind of a wild card.
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably the most secure team in the division when we're not talking about the Twins. But, yeah, I mean, if there's a time to pounce, it's now. Because there's really no team in that division where they're the golden standard. If you're in the NL West, you're looking at the Dodgers and Padres for a long time. If you're in the AL West, you've been looking at the Astros for a long time, and you might still be doing so for a while.
Yeah.
We don't really have that in the AL Central.
Right. And also, the thing with the Guardians is, they won 93 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very young team. However, they were never going to go out and sign a player of like Carlos Correa's caliber.
No.
Because
their big signing was Josh Bell for 2 years.
Yeah. That was their big signing. It was a $32 million deal.
Mm-hmm.
And even that was surprising. But yeah, like, with the Central, it's kind of like whoever takes it, takes it. It's not really like there's a big particular favorite.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, things can change every single year.
Yeah.
Right, and the Twins are definitely building some sort of foundation right now with Correa and Buxton. They're obviously hoping that they can finally get a full, healthy year out of Byron Buxton. But other than that, I mean, yeah, this team is looking like they're going for the long term.
Yeah, for sure they do. Yeah, they have some young talent, and I mean, Correa, he's not necessarily just coming up, but he's still pretty young at the age of 28.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was not the only action the Twins had taken since our last episode. They also made a trade with the Miami Marlins, kind of out of the blue. They traded Luis Arraez for Pablo Lopez and 2 prospects. One of them was number 5 in the Marlins system. What were your takeaways from the deal between the Twins and Marlins?
I thought it was definitely very out of the blue, as you mentioned. So, I mean, it's really Pablo Lopez, who has been in trade talks for a long time. He was, like, almost going to be a Yankee last trade deadline. Now he's a Twin. I was very shocked that the Twins just let go of Luis Arraez like that. He is the batting champion from last year. Not even just the American League, but just all of baseball. He is a minus on defense, but overall he's a guy that makes your team better. And he has 3 years of control, and he's pretty young. There were a lot of factors that went into my confusion. Pablo Lopez had a great start to the season last year, and then he kind of mellowed out for the last few months of the season. Chris, you made the point earlier that he had the same ERA and expected ERA. That was very satisfying.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe my initial reaction was that the Marlins cleaned up in this trade, they did a great job, and a lot of that might just have to do with the shock value of Arraez going, because I'm not surprised to see Lopez go. And I'll talk about the prospects in a little bit as well, but Arraez I was not expecting that name to be in there.
Right, yeah. It's two guys of pretty similar age. Lopez going into his age 27 season, Arraez going into his age 26 season. If this trade was made 1 year ago, I think it would be pretty clear that the Twins would be getting the best benefit because Pablo Lopez's value was higher, Luis Arraez's value was a little lower.
The main point you made was they traded a guy at his best value for a guy at his lowest value.
Yeah, and
maybe Pablo Lopez's value is the highest it will be from now going forward. I mean, he has 2 years left of control. And between 2 and 3 years of control is a pretty big deal. Once you get below 2 is when the value really starts going down naturally because of the service time left. So there's a good chance that Pablo Lopez, won't be this valuable ever again. But still, I was shocked to see it happen at that time.
Yeah, it was interesting because I guess from a Twins angle you could say we're getting a guy who probably should be doing a little bit better, who probably will do better next year, considering I would imagine his ERA plus dropped a little bit. I know he had a 1.08 ERA plus last year, which is, not great for Lopez, who has a better reputation than that. But it's interesting to, put Arraez out there at his highest value, who had, not only won the batting champion, but a 138 OPS plus last year, which is very good. And, career highs in average exit velocity, career high in, he won the batting title, probably a career high in OPS plus as well. I don't have his baseball reference page pulled up. And, career low in strikeout rate. He had a spectacular season, and you would want to sell high on him if he is on the market, and I don't know if they necessarily did that.
Yeah, I agree. My initial take was that the Marlins won this trade, and we can start talking about the prospects now that they got, because they got two guys that are still teenagers technically. One of them was, I believe his name was Jose Salas, who is a top 100 prospect according to Fangraphs at the end of last year. I don't believe he was on Baseball America's updated list, because they just updated their list. But according to Fangraphs, he's the number 89 overall prospect 83 overall prospect in baseball. He, at age 19 last year, he played 61 games in A-ball. And he had a 123 weighted runs created plus. He slashed 267, 355, 421. And then he moved to High A, where he played his last 48 games of the season, so about, a month, 2 months worth of games, where he slashed 230, 319, 340 for an 88 weighted runs created plus. And I don't want to say that that's, telling, and the other one was Byron Correa, I think his name was. Who is 17 years old and just completed his season in the Dominican Summer League.
Interesting.
Why is that?
Oh, well, that he's 17.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the Dominican Summer League, it has some of the most hilarious stats, because the guys who, are at the top of that league just put up the stupidest numbers.
Yep.
It's a very fun, the league OBP is 357. which I find very amusing. Because by the way, the league batting average is well over 100 points lower. Like the walk rates are just hilarious.
Oh.
Which is relatively common for
lower level leagues.
For lower level leagues, it's a lot of guys that throw harder than they have any idea what to do with it. So Byron Corio played 51 games in the Dominican Summer League. He had 217 plate appearances. I'm not a fan of the fact that he had an 066 ISO, which meant that he was pretty much exclusively hitting singles. But he did have a 344, 429, 410 slash line for a 134 weighted runs created plus. He had one home run in 217 plate appearances, but he did have an 11.5% walk rate. So they're really taking a gamble on these prospects. You know, they're both guys that we are older than.
Yeah.
And we're probably not going to see them in the big leagues, if at all. It's going to be like 2025 at the earliest.
Right.
So, it's going to take a while, likely, to see who wins this trade, unless one of the two guys just completely goes off in the next couple of years.
Yeah, so to break it down, you know, the Marlins got a guy who is 1 year younger and had a 138 OPS plus last year. The Twins got a guy who's 1 year older, who had a 108 ERA plus last year, but has done better. And they got two prospects. How I see it, I think at least one of those prospects is going to have to work out like well in order for the Twins to win the trade. I think I could see them winning the trade. I think Pablo Lopez is a good
absolutely
pitcher.
Could too. I was gonna make my case for the Twins after you were done. But
yeah, and Arraez, you know, he's coming off a career year. He is still young, but you know we could see, you know, a slight setback potentially, but you never know.
And not only that, but this team is so deep with its lineup that it can easily do without Luis Arraez. I mean, he played, you know, they kind of didn't really have a place to stick him last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be playing second in Miami. We can talk about that later. But, like, without him, you have, you know, Carlos Correa at short, obviously. You have Jorge Polanco at second, who they've been pretty committed to over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They have Nick Gordon DHing. That could be better, but, you know, whatever. And they have Alex Kirilloff at first base, who was still a top 10 overall prospect in baseball at one point. Like, they're still waiting on him to become an everyday player.
Right.
In 2021, we talked about how he was hitting the ball really well and just not getting the results that he should have been. And he had an injury-riddled 2022, but, you know, I mean, there's still, you know, don't be surprised if Alex Kirilloff blossoms into the hitter that he's supposed to be still.
Yeah, another young guy who, you know, could work out for the Twins, homegrown as well. And funny thing is he made his MLB debut in the playoffs.
Yes, he did.
It was funny. Shout out to the Twins Astros series of 2020.
Yeah.
Never forget.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, I don't think it's definitely like most trades. It's not a thing where you can call it at the start.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I'm favoring the Marlins a little bit at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can definitely change. So yeah, anything more on the trade?
I mean, I think the Twins rotation is very fun right now. It's Sonny Gray, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Tyler Mahle, Kenta Maeda.
Yeah.
They don't have I don't think they have a true ace, but they have a bunch of 2 starters.
Yes, true. That is correct.
I think Joe Ryan could be an ace. He looked really good for parts of last year before he got hurt, and then struggled a little bit afterwards. But I mean, I think there's a chance he becomes an ace this year. But coming into spring training, they have a very good rotation without an ace, which is amusing.
Yeah, Ryan has very good walk numbers.
He was actually in the Nelson Cruz trade. So going back to the Marlins really quick, did you see what they're doing with Jazz Chisholm now?
Yeah, is he playing center?
He's playing center field. He's never played there at any level of professional baseball. I believe I mean, they might have gotten quotes from him on this, where he said like he was ready to get to work there or something, which is good. I mean, that's the best thing you can say if you're Jazz Chisholm in that situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, maybe it's a reminder of when Fernando Tatis Jr. went to the outfield in the middle of 2021 when they got Adam Frazier. But I think with guys like that, like you rely on their athleticism. They're like with Jazz Chisholm, he's a fast guy. He has a lot of power. I imagine he has a very good arm, considering how hard he can hit the ball. Like, he has that explosiveness. So it would make sense, yeah, to try him out at center field. However, like, you got Arraez playing second, and like, they just traded Miguel Rojas.
They did. Real quick, Jazz Chisholm told Craig Mish, who's a beat reporter for the Marlins, he said, "I will go out, play the position, and win a Gold Glove." So I don't think he has any problem, or at least publicly, with playing center field.
Yeah.
He's had a very interesting couple of years where he was awesome at the start of 2021. He got hurt and then fell pretty far to the point where he ended the year with a below average weighted runs created plus. And then he was on the way to becoming an all-star, probably the starting all-star second baseman in 2022, and then he also got hurt. He came back, and there was that thing in mid-July where the Marlins held a team-only meeting in which he got a lot of criticism for just the way he was acting in the clubhouse and the way he was carrying himself.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's kept a pretty positive attitude about everything. I mean, I can only tell you a part of the story, but they're gonna do it. They're gonna try him out in center field this year, and I hope they don't break him because he's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
And he's also a guy that I think a lot of people can get behind if he's playing a full healthy year.
Yeah, absolutely, and
he has face of the franchise material, even though right now it's very much Sandy Alcantara.
Right, exactly. What I'm looking at with Jazz Chisholm, I was wondering why they might not put him at short, which is what he came up as. He came up as a shortstop, I believe.
Yeah, and currently they have Joey Wendell playing there, according to Fangraphs. They also have Gene Segura, who they just signed.
Mm-hmm. And they traded Miguel Rojas, who had been the face of the franchise, actually.
Unironically, for a while.
And he had been playing at shortstop with the Marlins for quite a while, but they traded him to the Dodgers. I forget the return on it, but it probably wasn't anything too significant. But career-wise, Jazz Chisholm at shortstop has -4 defensive runs saved and -9 outs above average at the shortstop position. At second base, it's very positive, but they just traded for Arraez, so I guess they're just trying to put him somewhere that's not shortstop, and seeing what happens. I guess they just don't trust him at shortstop, is what that's saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I just hope they can find something that works for him because, like I meant, the Marlins for years, their major issue has been offense. Their rotation is great. Sandy at the top of it and a bunch of young guys, and also Johnny Cueto. Following is fun. They've had a pretty underrated bullpen. Dylan Floro has been very good over the last couple of years. Tanner Scott, Richard Blyer, guys like that have been solid. Maybe this is the year we get the return of Sixto Sanchez. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? He's still listed as a prospect.
Is he really?
Because he didn't get 40
I guess
innings.
so. Although it does say he had shoulder surgery on October 3rd of last year. Not Tommy John, so that's encouraging.
Yeah.
Max Meyer did have Tommy John though, so that was a tough setback for them. Yuri Perez is probably coming up this year and joining that rotation. He's a top prospect in baseball. I think he's definitely top 10 in the league. So hopefully he can make an impact this year. But most importantly, hopefully the offense can pick up the rest of the pitching because that's a major issue. They've had routinely one of the worst offenses in the league last year. I mean, if you look at some of the lineups they put out towards the second half of the season when Chisholm was hurt, it was bad. And they've already improved quite considerably at the top of the lineup alone with Arraez, Segura, Chisholm batting third, Garrett Cooper batting fourth, who is very streaky, but he's a solid hitter. Ivy Sal Garcia, who they're going to need a bounce back year from, Jorge Soler, who they're going to need to keep healthy. Joey Wendell, who, his peak might be past him, but he can still be a pretty decent bat at times. Brian De La Cruz, who Chris and I both love.
Yeah.
He led the league
nice.
led the league in sweet spot percentage last year.
Yeah.
Jacob Stallings, catcher.
Yep.
Yeah. But this is a team that can put out a respectable enough offense to go along with that pitching, and it's going to be hard for them to compete in that division, but they're at least putting the steps together to do so.
Yeah. The Arraez thing is big. I mean, he's arguably, unless it's Chisholm, he's arguably already the best offensive player on that team.
Right now he is, but I think it's subject to change if Chisholm can stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one else has that shot, though.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to build on. I'd still be surprised if they got a 90 OPS plus this year. I think they had, what was it last year? It was not great. Last year, their offense.
The last 2 years, even, their offense has just been miserable. I can tell you they're weighted runs created plus while you're getting their OPS plus.
The Marlins
They had an 88 weighted runs created plus.
They had an 86 OPS plus.
In 2021 as well, it was also ugly.
Yeah.
They had a 83.
Right. It's, that's been a common flaw for the Marlins. They've seen great pitching performances from Alcantara, Pablo Lopez at points, Trevor Rogers almost won Rookie of the Year.
They have Edward Cabrera, who has looked filthy from time to time. Jesus Luzardo looked very good before he got hurt. You have Perez coming up this year, and Johnny Cueto had a career-defining year last year, and I think he'll benefit very well from that ballpark too.
Yeah,
because he's always been more of a fly ball pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can keep enough of him in the park.
Yeah, it's the Marlins. I mean, unfortunately, since the trades of Stanton, Yelich, Real Muto, Ozuna, they haven't had really much offensive explosion at all.
I mean, the only good piece they got from those trades is their best pitcher.
Yep.
Which, don't get me wrong, I mean,
they won the trade, no doubt.
This might be a hot take. I think that trade was worse for the Cardinals than a lot of other trades that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
It might be up there with the Archer trade that everyone loves to crap on.
True, yeah. Especially with,
Austin Meadows is not on the Rays anymore. Tyler Glasnow has not been able to stay healthy for really a full season. The only quote-unquote full season he's been healthy for is 2020.
Yep.
Which, that doesn't count.
And then Shane Baz got Tommy John.
Exactly. Could they have given up less to get Archer? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not like the results have been that drastic.
It just looked like it was easy to see, it looked really, really bad in 2019 and 2020 because Austin Meadows was an all-star. He ended up putting up over a 900 OPS. Glasnow
was one of the best pitchers in the league when he was healthy in multiple different seasons.
So it looked really bad for a year, but now things have cooled off for...
Yeah. And Ozuna struggled in St. Louis.
Ozuna did.
He was around a league average bat. He had in his 2 years with St. Louis, he had a 107 OPS plus.
Yeah.
That's not what we want to see.
Yep.
106 and 109 respectively in his 2 seasons. He had a 149 OPS plus before coming over to St. Louis, and he dropped his OPS plus by 43 points.
Oof.
He dropped his OPS by 160 points.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Alcantara is always at the very least top 10 in innings.
Yeah, he was in his own league in innings this year.
Yes.
He won unanimous Cy Young. He was no doubt about it the best pitcher in the league this year across both leagues, I would say.
Yeah.
228 and 2/3 innings pitched, a 2.28 ERA. It's very satisfying that in the Cy Young races this year, Sandy pitched 228 and 2/3 innings, and he had a 2.28 ERA. And on the flip side, Verlander had a 1.75 ERA and 175 innings pitched.
Yes.
It's very satisfying.
very satisfying. Alcantara's had 16.8 wins above replacement with the Marlins, while Ozuna might have had like 4.
We just need a guy to pitch like 99 innings.
Yeah.
We have an 0.99 ERA.
Yeah, right. One of those like multiple inning relievers. St. Louis.
Like Edwin Diaz or something like that.
Yeah. Ozuna had 4.6 WAR with the Cardinals, so it's a difference of about 12 so far. And Alcantara's only going to get more. But yeah, anything more with this Marlins trade?
I really don't think I have anything more. I don't know. I mean, the 2 prospects I'm not too sure about. One of them is top 100 at age 19, which is good.
Yeah.
But even then, like that,
you just never know.
You really cannot ever
It's
tell.
not like it's a top 5 guy in the league.
Yeah.
But, he could shoot up there, but he could also just disappear.
Exactly.
Like Jeter
we
Downs.
could forget. Yeah, like we could forget about the people giving up in that trade.
Right.
In 2 years, 1 year, 6 months.
It could, very well. One thing I think we forgot to mention just before the show, we could touch on it briefly. It's not the biggest news in the world, but Trevor Story getting like an elbow surgery.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be out for probably a good amount, like a really good amount of 2023.
He was asked yesterday if he was going to play at all in 2023, and he said like he plans on it.
Yeah.
So,
however,
but yeah, still not great.
However, when you're asking like if you will play, if you're going to play, it's going to be maybe a month or 2.
Yeah.
So that's not great. And it really makes the Xander Bogaerts situation look a lot worse, even though you didn't really know it was going to happen. You knew there was a previous injury with Story in 2021, but you didn't know
in
that.
2022. People were complaining about how so it was what was it, his elbow or shoulder? Yeah, his elbow, and like he had elbow issues last season as well, and people were questioning, why didn't they do anything earlier? Turns out this was a whole separate thing. Like Story started feeling pain around Christmas.
Yeah.
I will say, the Red Sox were like on the brink of interesting after the Devers extension, and then obviously this was a major blow.
Yeah.
The Red Sox are holding their winter weekend a few miles from us right now, Chris.
Yeah.
And last night they held, like John Henry spoke with the media for the first time since the Betts trade. Chaim Bloom, did a panel right in front of hundreds of fans, and he was booed pretty relentlessly because whatever. Henry was as well. Henry, I think, got louder boos, which is more satisfying. But I kind of wish we could live in a universe where winter weekend happened before the Devers extension, just to see how bad it could have gotten.
Oh my god!
Because in all the conversations I had watched like on Twitter, because I wasn't there last night, but every single point of negativity turned back into, but hey, we signed Rafi and it was great and he's gonna be with us for 11 years, and I would love to see the universe where that didn't happen and there was nothing positive happening with the Red Sox.
Yeah, right.
And Chaim Bloom comes out like, hey, we're gonna win some games this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a very interesting universe, no doubt about it.
Like, if we could have lived in a universe where they signed Devers in, like, mid-February, that would have been awesome.
Yes. I mean, then Devers would have... Henry and Bloom would have heard the boos, and they would have
called him on stage.
Yeah.
Be like, you want 11 years, $330 million?
You want $600 million right now? We don't care. I'm tired of this.
Please, look at these people. Like, we get it. We messed up.
Yeah, but... This Story thing, it does make this Bogart situation look worse because the whole thing with Story was like, if Bogarts leaves, he can put Story at shortstop. Looks like you can't do that. Looks like you can't even put him at second base.
I mean, his arm strength went down from like the 40th percentile to the 8th percentile last year. So even that, like, can you really even put Story at short?
Yeah, I guess that was.
Maybe the elbow will help that out. I mean, I'm sure to throw well, you need a good elbow.
Yeah,
that probably helps.
Yeah, but I mean, I think different guys definitely react to it differently.
Yeah.
Like, I know Syndergaard got Tommy John surgery. His fastball velocity went down by like 3 miles per hour.
It's so sad.
But guys like, I don't know, like Matt Harvey and Steven Strasburg.
Even Verlander.
Yeah. Like, it didn't really affect them.
No, Verlander, I mean, maybe it made him better.
Yeah, who knows?
His healthy arm was holding him back, actually.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the thing now with the Red Sox is they're saying they're going to put Kike Hernandez at shortstop, which I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a disaster.
No, I just liked him in center field.
It was
good.
He
had very good defensive numbers out there.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And now there's Adam Duvall.
There's Adam Duvall, who they signed for 1 year, $7 million. Yeah. So it doesn't look like they're going to be going after Brian Reynolds. That was
never going to happen.
Yeah.
That was you want to trade Brian Bayo?
Yeah,
Miguel Bleis?
Yeah. Not yet. Not at this point. So yeah, like, I guess that's their temporary fill-in, and Duvall seems like he'll be fun. He'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Not the worst guy. But yeah, it sets the Red Sox back a little bit. It's really testing their depth, no doubt, considering they lost both their middle infielders in Bogaerts and Story. So, not great for the Red Sox, but
the Red Sox are in the bottom echelon of the interesting tier.
Yes.
Like, there are a few teams that I'd like to put there. Like, the Red Sox are just barely making it in.
Right.
But they were easily there before the Story injury, and that really sets them back. Like, I'm thinking most of the AL East, I think, is in the interesting category.
Yeah, even the Orioles.
Yeah.
They're sort of interesting.
And we'll get into that later. But I'm almost, speaking of which, I'm almost done with my players to watch. I have 5 teams left.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I've listed off a couple guys who I will refer back to when I go to when I start prepping in March.
Yeah.
When we start doing these things. Or actually,
it's funny. We will have equal results. I mean, this year particularly, we had relatively equal results with our players to watch. You start in March, I start in November. Sometimes even October.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's hard not to just find a guy very interesting.
Yeah.
Love at first sight.
Literally. I've had a couple guys like that this offseason where I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yep.
I can't wait. I mean, the amount of thoughts I have that I've been keeping from you for a few months now.
It's got to be hard.
It is.
Yeah, for sure.
No doubt.
It's hard to reserve some thoughts. All right, so that does it for the MLB, for the kind of current MLB news, except for the Hall of Fame. This is the last episode before the Hall of Fame election, and we like to get into that.
Yes. Do we want to do live reactions again? Where are you Tuesday at 6 p.m.?
I guess Meredith is gonna have some say on that. But
fair
probably I'll probably be here.
Good.
Most likely.
All right, fair enough.
But yeah, I don't think I should be doing anything unless I'm covering a game. But I only cover 1 game a week. But anyway, where are we at?
I feel very nervous. I think there are so many different outcomes. I think there's 4 different outcomes. I think there's a chance no one gets in. I think there's a chance only Scott Rowland gets in. I think there's a chance only Todd Helton gets in, believe it or not. And I think there's even a chance that both Scott Rowland and Todd Helton get in.
Nice.
But it's going to take a lot. My biggest concern right now is that as of January 21st at 4:45 p.m., 3 days and 75 minutes before the election, we only have 173 public ballots. And that is a low number for this time. Last year, there were 205 ballots revealed prior to the election. The year before that, coincidentally, there was also exactly 205 ballots revealed prior to the election. And that means, well, first of all, we're only at 43.7% of the vote actually turned in. So we don't even know half the vote yet.
Yeah.
And we're not going to. We're not going to get more than maybe 10 more ballots from now until the election. And I don't like that at all because that means there's more private ballots than usual.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's just less people voting in general. I think that would be the best case scenario given this situation. But my biggest concern right now, without a doubt, is the lack of public ballots that are currently out because we really don't see a huge wave of ballots in the days, like in the last days leading up to the election. Like, this is kind of what it is, minus a couple others that we will see later. But right now, Scott Rowland sits at 80.3% of the votes, which is, obviously it's over the 75% threshold. Last year, he had an 8% difference between pre-results and the actual final. So if he's going to have exactly that this year, he would need to be at 83%. And I just don't see him getting there, which means we're going to have to count on him to get more of the private vote. And for whatever reason, the private ballots specifically hate him. Yeah. Like, they hate him more than they hate most other players. Last year, just to give you an idea, last year, Scott Rowland got a total of... Where's his name? Of 34.2% of the private vote. That is, like, lower than a lot of other people. Just to give you an idea, Todd Helton had 41.1% of the private vote. Jeff Kent had 28%. Scott Rowland was only, like, 6 points above Jeff Kent. That's... And the public vote does not have it that way. Billy Wagner had a higher percent. Manny Ramirez... Actually, Alex Rodriguez had a 8% higher rate of private ballots than Scott Rowland.
That's weird.
And you'd think the private ballots hate A-Rod.
Yeah.
He actually did better on them than Scott Rowland, who is, the most likely candidate. I might even lean towards saying that Todd Helton is the most likely candidate to get in this year. I think there's an easier path for Todd Helton to get in on his own than Scott Rowland.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's Todd Helton at on the public ballots right now?
He's exactly one vote behind Scott Rowland.
Interesting.
So there's, like I mentioned, 173 public ballots that have been released. Scott Rowland has 139 votes at 80.3%. Todd Helton has 138 at 79.8%. And last year he had a 5% difference between public and private ballots. So if he had that exactly again, right now he'd be at 74.8%. Yeah. Which means he'd have to do slightly better on the private ballots than he did last year.
Right.
And the private ballots gave him 41% last year, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, for private ballot's sake, of which there were 73, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think there's a better chance, if we're going to see one candidate get in through the BBWAA, that it's Todd Helton. Which I can't believe I'm saying that. I would have never in my life guessed that. But he's had such a huge year. He's plus 30 right now in the net gain category, whereas Rowland is only at plus 11. He really hasn't done... I mean, I say this as if he has any control over it, but he really has not won over a lot of voters that were previously not putting him down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really couldn't believe it. I thought he was going to be a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame this year, with a much more depleted ballot than we had last year, with like Sosa, Schilling, Bonds, Clemens all leaving, and Ortiz leaving. Like, I thought that was going to clear up so much room for people to start voting Rowland, but it just hasn't happened the way that I hoped it would.
Right. Yeah. It's I guess the angle with Helton doing better on private ballots and doing better in general is, I think, for, a private ballot type, which is, maybe a little less knowledgeable of baseball and maybe not proud of their votes necessarily, and maybe more of an older school mentality. Granted, I'm assuming things. This isn't true for all 200, private ballots that are going to come in. But it's easier to grasp Todd Helton's greatness because of, count statistics, and things of that nature. Even if you consider the Coors Field aspect, he still had 2,500 hits, 592 doubles, which I think is like top 20 all time. 369 home runs, over 1,400 RBI, over 1,300 walks, 316 lifetime average. So as opposed to Rowland, who, he didn't have as great offensive statistics and as great count statistics, even though in both of our opinion he was the better player, considering he had amazing defense, over 20 defensive wins above replacement, and in a basic sense I think he had 8 or 9 gold gloves. But I think going back to Helton, it's kind of easier to grasp why he was great as opposed to Rowland, with Scott Rowland, you almost have to mention wins above replacement.
Yeah.
Where you don't necessarily have to with Todd Helton.
Exactly.
Because I think, like, people just hear wins above replacement and a trigger goes off and it's like, that's stupid stuff. I can't stand it. Wins above WAR. What the heck is WAR? Whereas, like, Helton, you can be like, he had 2,500 hits. He had a lifetime 316 average.
Yeah. And, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to think that the Coors barrier is breaking. Like, isn't it kind of stupid to punish a guy that... yes, Todd Helton did choose to stay in Colorado. You know, he could have not signed an extension or signed as a free agent, or I don't know how exactly his contract details worked out, 20 years ago. But he played there for 17 years, and he still was a very good player on the road, and he was an amazing player at home. Like, he had Barry Bonds type numbers at home. One thing that I will say that I think is encouraging for Scott Rowland, so one thing I have not mentioned yet is that last year there were 116 ballots that were revealed publicly after the results. Scott Rowland got 67.2% of this vote. If he can get that up to 70 this year, you know, even with the private ballots being what they are, I don't think he's losing any of the private vote. So if he can get that up a little bit, I think there's a shot.
Yeah. And going back to the Coors thing, it helps tremendously that Larry Walker was voted in.
Yes. Oh my God, yes. Because I believe it was Helton's second year when Walker got in.
Yeah.
And he's been making tremendous gains. Like the 2021 ballot, which is the year that no one got in, aka the first year post Walker getting in, Helton had the biggest gain of anyone there.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year where I was like, okay, it's gonna happen eventually with him.
Yeah.
Last year he had a little bit of a more quiet year, but so did a lot of people because it was such a crowded ballot. You know, no one really had a huge gain last year. And this year, you know, now that we're back to having players with big gains, Helton's at the forefront of it once again.
Yeah.
He's in his 5th year on the ballot now, so, I mean, he's going to get in.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way of saying it, unless he happens to miss by fractions this year and he outs himself in a really horrible way.
Right.
But, you know, just stay quiet.
Yeah.
And he'll find his way in there. But I would love to see it this year. I mean, I think... Honestly, I'm very, very scared of what a shutout means this year. Obviously, it's just bad. It's just a bad look to say that none of those players are Hall of Fame worthy because there are plenty. But there's also such a loaded first-year class coming in next year, and we're going to see another year where probably not a lot of people make huge gains. Because, I mean, Adrian Beltre is going to be on the ballot next year, and he's going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. I think there's a chance he gets 90% of the vote. You have Chase Utley coming on next year, who... is going to take a few years, but ultimately I think will find his way in. You have Joe Mauer coming in. I think he'll take like 2, 3, maybe 4 years to get in. Like he was, you know, as a catcher to be, you know, a solid offensive player, to have one of the great peaks that the position has ever seen. You know, his 2009 season alone might be Hall of Fame worthy. You have... Obviously, well, I mean, those are the big 3, but also David Wright will be getting some votes. I think he'll be getting enough votes to stay on the ballot, especially from the New York writers. You know, he's a likable guy that just happened to, you know, not be able to stay on the field, not through any real fault of his own. I think Matt Holliday will stay on the ballot at the very least last year. He had an 889 career OPS. You know, I don't know if he'll ever get in. You know, I'm still on the fence of if I'm ever going to vote for him or not. But he had the offense to get it done, and I think that he will at least stay on the ballot next year. He needs 20 votes.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Omar Vizquel only has 15 votes.
Wow.
Like, he'll get in because the private ballots love him. Like, he gets more of the... He gets, like, double...
You mean he'll stay on?
Oh, he'll easily stay on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very satisfying to see that we're going to get to the election and not know technically if Omar Vizquel got enough votes to even stay on the ballot.
True.
But he will.
Yeah. Right. Very true. Yeah, I was... Not to derail the conversation, but maybe just a tangent. I was literally thinking about this, like, maybe a day or two after Hoop Hall ended, but I was like, being on the Rockies is just such a raw deal. Because either you're a pitcher and you're just going to do worse and you're never going to succeed, because literally maybe the top 2 pitchers in Rockies history are like
German Marquez and
Ubaldo Jimenez, or you have a fantastic offensive career but you don't get enough credit for it ever.
Yeah. If Helton gets in this year or next, because I mean he's going to get in this year or next, I'm so excited to have a break of the Coors conversations.
Yeah.
Because, like, the next, like, who's, like, probably Nolan Arenado is the next player that will be getting serious Hall of Fame. Maybe Matt Holliday. I don't know. But he also succeeded on the Cardinals. And also, I don't think that, regardless of where he played, if Matt Holliday is really going to be getting that much consideration.
True. Yeah.
He played most of his career in St. Louis and had a 138 weighted runs created plus there.
Yeah, but he had no defense, no base running particularly. No.
Yeah. He had a wins above replacement below my line of consideration. Yeah, but he did have a pretty cool peak.
Yeah, 132 OPS plus, which actually is not far off from Helton's, but he did it in less plate appearances and
seeing the difference is so funny because he had a 936 career OPS with the Rockies and had a 131 OPS plus. Meanwhile, he had an 874 OPS with the Cardinals, like 70 points lower, but he had a higher weighted runs created plus / OPS plus because of the environment.
That's funny, yeah.
No, I do agree with you. Playing with the Rockies is such a lose-lose, and it's not like you're winning games either.
True, yeah.
Like I think Baseball Prospectus released like a list of articles that'll be coming out in their next book, like going into the 2023 season. And the essay about the Rockies was like, why are they still an expansion team after 30 years?
Yeah. Like, and they signed a huge deal, but it wasn't the right guy.
No.
With Chris Bryant, like I feel
I always appreciate seeing teams that don't spend a lot go for big contracts. But it sucks when it has to be contracts like that where it's like, what are you doing?
Right.
Why did you do that?
Man.
We're still waiting for his first home run at Coors Field as a Rocky.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, like it's a raw deal, no doubt. And it's really the only sport where like the atmosphere or the altitude can have that much of an effect, unless you're like, I guess, a kicker.
The Broncos kicker, yeah.
Yeah, a kicker in the NFL. Like Matt Prater he used to have the all-time record, but like it was in Denver.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there any studies on if it affects like the quarterback?
I don't think so.
Because is that what Russell Wilson can chop it up to?
Yeah, that's why.
Dude, I got to throw the ball much more easily. I was still thrown off.
Yeah. But yeah. So it looks like Roland possibly getting in, but not looking great. Helton possibly getting in.
I'm giving it 50-50 on both.
Sounds
if
good.
we can, dude, if both of them get in, like I will cry actual tears. Like that that would be the happiest day of my life.
It would be pretty nice. It would be pretty nice to.
It would be such a.
It's a big sigh of relief.
It would be a big sigh of relief, and it also makes next year so much easier.
Yes, very true.
So much easier. But yeah, I need it. I need Roland and Helton, 2023. Although I don't think it's likely both get in. Really, I just want one to get in.
Yeah.
I don't even care which one it is because both of them will get in someday.
Yeah, true. Especially like they're not necessarily on like their 8th or 9th.
No, Roland's on his 6th year. Helton is on his 5th. If we can talk about some other storylines on this ballot, Billy Wagner currently sits at 73.4%. He was at 51% last year. I would love to see him get to 65% this year. I think that would be the dream.
Yep.
Because he had almost no difference between his pre-results and actual results last year. He had 0.7%. So last year, he had before the results, he had 51.7% of the vote. He ended at 51%. I mean, hypothetically, if that pattern follows itself, like who says he can't get to 70%?
Yeah.
I'm not counting on it. I'm thinking he gets more into the range of 65. But if he goes into his 9th year with 65% of the vote, I like his chances.
Yeah, and also I guess the benefit of guys, I know next year is in his 10th year, but guys who go into their 10th year, I think, see a bit of a leap.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with Jeff Kent this year. We saw it famously with Fred McGriff, who is now a Hall of Famer, but, like, it was sort of like a pity vote. We saw it with Larry Walker. We saw it with Edgar Martinez.
Yeah.
Outside of steroid guys who get to their 10th year usually get an overwhelming batch of support.
Yes, for sure.
Kurt Schilling as well, but that was a different story.
Very different. And what are we at with Andrew Jones?
So Andrew Jones is at 69.4% of the vote. Very nice.
That's pretty good.
He's been gaining some traction.
And this is his 5th year?
This is his 6th year. He was at 41.4% last year. Like, I have to remind myself how many people don't support him. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I want him to get to 50 this year. I think that's the goal.
Yeah.
And he's gained 24 votes, so realistically he should be getting there, maybe even 55%.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think 50 to 55% is the range we're looking for with Andrew Jones, and he's got to just keep growing every single year.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, unfortunately, I can't say that I'm confident he's going to get in, period, via BBWAA at this point.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a gain of... If he gets to 55, that's fantastic. That is huge.
Yep.
I just, I'd like to see him get to 50 first.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I guess, a factor with next year is, like, I guess, if you're cheering on the Hall of Fame like a team, you want to root for, like, guys like, Maurer, Utley, and Beltre, all to get in so that the future ones is going to have more room for Jones.
Yeah.
And I would hope Roland and Helton are in there already.
Yeah.
But, like...
Wagner.
Yeah, Wagner.
One thing I'm very intrigued to see is where Carlos Beltran ends up landing. Because my gut says private ballots probably tear him down a little bit, but right now he's at 56.1% of the vote. If he can debut at like 45%, that's solid.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy with that.
Right.
For him, because he's got 9 years to gain 30% of the vote. Like, he can do it.
Yep.
Especially because I think as the years pass, the Astros thing is going to become more and more irrelevant.
Right.
Like, no new information has come out about that basically since 2019, maybe 2020, because that's when the report came out.
Yeah.
And we still don't even really know for sure if Beltran actually had anything to do with it, because, like, the only real effect it's had on him was the Mets managerial job, but he resigned from that.
Yeah.
Like, that was him walking away because he's like, this is going to be a distraction for me. Like, I just want to manage this team. Clearly, I'm not going to be able to do that right now. So I'm going to, for the benefit of you guys, I'm going to step away. He was not fired from that job.
Yes.
But I very much want to see him debut at a nice number. Yeah.
And also, I don't think that really influences the writers that much, but the Astros winning now helps.
That's true.
It helps relieve that tension from 2017.
Yeah, because, like, no longer can you say they couldn't do it without the trash cans.
Right.
And not only that, but I've mentioned this before, but it was Carlos Beltran's, like, age 40 season. Like, who cares if he was cheating that year? Because you know what? When he wasn't cheating, in any reports, the entire rest of his career.
Yeah. He wasn't cheating when he was hitting a home run every game of the 2004 playoffs.
Literally, and it's not like people are really even considering, like, even the years leading up to 2017 on their ballot. It's like, hey, I remember in 2016 with the Rangers, he was good, so I'm going to put him on my ballot. Like, no one's doing that, so no one's doing it for 2017.
Yeah,
either.
No one's considering his Yankees career.
No. Like, if people are considering his Royals career, his Mets career, his Astros prior career, his first Astros career, I'm definitely one of those guys. He's definitely one of those guys where I'm curious to know which hat he goes in with if he goes in.
Yeah. Like, it would be interesting. I feel like Mets
or Royals has to be.
Yeah. I think it's a weird thing because at least with Zach Greinke,
he went back to the Royals.
And before he went to the Royals, it was a question mark because, like, he had, his best year there, but he didn't like have attention on him necessarily with the Royals.
Yeah.
Even though he spent, like, the most time there. But now that he went back, I think he'll go with the Royals.
Is he a free agent now?
Because
Because if he is, that's also a low. Because okay, like let's say Greinke I think he's a free agent now. Let's say he doesn't sign with the team and he doesn't pitch again. That's a pretty loaded first year class with him, Pujols, and Molina.
Yeah.
Right? Did anyone else retire this year?
No.
No one that's Hall of Fame worthy.
Yeah, no.
Because I'm looking at the next few years because next year we've mentioned the class that we have 2019 or the class of 25 I guess first year class. It's Ichiro who will get in first ballot. He'll probably get 90% of the vote too. CC Sabathia I think will get in first ballot. If not second ballot.
Yep.
And then Dustin Pedroia, who I think will kind of hang around for a while on the ballot.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's ever going to get in or not, but I could see him. I could see him going with like a Jeff Kent route.
Yep.
Where he's hanging there for a while, but he just never really gets there.
True.
2020, the 2026 year, Cole Hamels, and that's probably it.
Yep.
And I might be the loudest Cole Hamels supporter out there, but that's fine. And then 2021, it's really just Buster Posey.
Yep.
No one else really of note retired then that I can think of. And then 2022, it's Pujols, Molina, possibly Greinke. And then the year after that, I think it would be 2027, or maybe even 28. You got Miguel Cabrera retiring after this year. He'll get in first year.
Yep.
Well, I believe Adam Wainwright's retiring after this year. I have no idea if he's going to be in the Hall of Fame or not, but he will be on the ballot for more than 1 year, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I gotta love looking ahead to when we're 28 years old talking about the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And we're talking about guys that we grew up watching.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool, like that we're seeing these guys. Like we're talking about these guys where it's like I remember their peak. You know, like I'm talking about Scott Rowland. I watched him play, but I watched the tail end of his career. Same with Todd Helton. Billy Wagner, I didn't even really watch.
Yeah, I've made this point a couple times, but like my memories of Scott Rowland is like Blue Jays and Reds, which is not his peak. My memories of Andrew Jones was like the Yankees.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really have any. My memories of Todd Helton were end of his career, where he wasn't.
I remember watching him retire, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, because he retired the same year as Rivera, and I was like, wow, nobody cares about his retirement because of Mariano Rivera's retirement.
Yeah, exactly. Who else? Billy Wagner. I saw him when I was 8 on the Red Sox.
Yep. Bobby Abreu, even. Yeah,
Bobby Abreu, just being on the.
I mean, honestly, like we're kind of seeing it now with guys like that are going to be one and dones. Like I remember I have plenty of Mike Napoli memories.
Yeah.
He's on the ballot this year. He won't be getting a single vote. Which is fine. I don't think anyone's... By the way, someone voted for R.A. Dickey today. And I read their ballot, and it was the stupidest, funniest thing ever, because it was a guy that put down 10 players, so he took away someone else's vote to go for R.A. Dickey. I remember a few years ago, Bob Nightingale put LaTroy Hawkins on his ballot because he was such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And I got mad at it for a little bit, but I was like, you know what? He voted for 8 people. Like, you didn't take away someone else's vote to vote for LaTroy Hawkins.
Yeah.
This guy, in his column, talked about how he was one of the most unique, pitchers, ever, which is, I guess, true. I mean, he won a Cy Young as a knuckleballer. But, the story he told was so funny because it was during his Rangers career, because this was a Rangers writer. Notoriously not R.A. Dickey's peak. Yep. Not that he was bad there, but, it was before he was good. Buck Showalter was his manager at the time of the story that was being told, so that's how far away it was. Where he got knocked around in a start with the Rangers, and he was trying to stay in the rotation, so he was obviously very disappointed in his start. And Buck came out to get him and said, "See you in 5 days," and he was happy because he was "Oh, I'm still in the rotation." And then he told that story and just goes, "I'm putting him on my Hall of Fame ballot this year," and that was the end of the article. And I was like, "That's it? That's your old you didn't give us any reasoning. You said here's a pretty cool story about his career. Anyway, he's on my Hall of Fame ballot."
Buck Showalter was nice to him.
Yeah.
This is why I'm putting him in the Hall of Fame.
Let me find it. I need to find this guy because this was a wild ride today.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And he put down 10 players. Like, don't get me wrong, I try not to knock people. T.R. Sullivan of Rangers Today, who put this ballot out today. You know, like, I don't have a problem with the ballot itself. Okay, so R.I. Dickey, he wrote a separate column about him titled R.I. Dickey for the Hall of Fame. Actually, he's in a class by himself. So this is T.R. Sullivan formerly of the Fort Worth Star. And MLB Fort Worth Star Telegram, MLB.com. This is a column that he wrote for Rangers Today. Former Rangers manager Buck Showalter once had a particularly memorable message for a pitcher he was about to pull from a game. Starting pitcher R.I. Dickey was taking a beating early, and Showalter decided his young right-hander had enough. Not only was Dickey's ass taking a beating, but so too was his fragile ego. Dickey wanted badly to be in the Rangers' rotation, but a start like this could easily lead a young pitcher to get sent to the bullpen, or even worse, banished to AAA Oklahoma City. Showalter walked to the mound, stretched out his hand for the baseball, looked Dickey in the eye, and said, "See you in 5 days." Dickey got a pat on the backside and walked off the mound feeling lousy about his performance, but relieved by his manager's confidence. "That meant a lot to me when he said that," Dickey later told me. Dickey deserved that respect. He's one of the most unique and amazing players I've ever covered during my 32 years on the Rangers beat. I am voting him on my Hall of Fame ballot this year. That's the end of the article. There's nothing else after that.
It's so stupid. Like, we're both in this, you know, trying to get into this industry of journalism, sports journalism. But God, if some people aren't really into themselves, yeah, like, you know, I think he just wanted to tell that story.
Yeah.
Because it's not even like R.A. Dickey did something nice. Buck Showalter did something nice.
The story was about Buck. Like, Dickey was experiencing an extremely common emotion for people in his position. He wants to be in the rotation, and he did bad, so he was sad because he was scared he wouldn't be in the rotation, which is notoriously something that only R.A. Dickey could feel. Yeah. Like, you're telling me any number 5 starter in any rotation that's like 24 years old wouldn't feel the same way?
Yeah, it's
which I know that that's only one story, because he did say that he was one of the most amazing and unique players he's covered in his 32 years, which implies there's more. Yeah. But is that the one that you're going with? Is it the one that stands out?
Right.
I don't know. I thought it was wild. But like, honestly, I've paid attention to the Hall of Fame voting for so many years now, it's not even funny. And I've seen a lot of bad takes, a lot of questionable decisions. Sometimes you just gotta sit back and laugh, and this is one of those times.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I laughed when, I was thrown off when Peter Gammons decided to drop Larry Walker in his 10th year. Yep. And he didn't put down 10 players. Like, it wasn't like he had to remove him to make room for someone else. He was just like, yeah, I just decided he's not Hall of Fame worthy this year of all years. Yep. Like, people were like, what did Larry Walker do in the last year that Peter Gammons took away his vote? I mean, I've seen people make the argument that people like Omar Vizquel that have been in legal trouble are worse people than people that were accused of steroid use. Yeah. I've seen it all, man. And I guess I haven't seen it all, because just when you think you've seen it all, you see an article like that with R.A. Dickey. And it's just like... It's just, what are we doing?
Yeah, you know. You got.
I mentioned Nightingale with LaTroy Hawkins.
Yeah, you got 400 people determining this thing. You're gonna get some goofy stuff at some point. I imagine most have pretty normal, fair ballots.
There was a guy who voted for Houston Street this year. And I'm pretty sure that guy didn't vote for Billy Wagner too.
Yeah, it's just.
Let me see if I'm correct in that conclusion. Okay, no, he did vote for Billy Wagner, and he did vote for 10. Oh, it was the same guy. The same guy voted for Houston Street and R.A. Dickey on the same ballot. Yeah. And he didn't vote for Bobby Abreu, Carlos Beltran, Mark Burley. Who else that's somewhat Hall of Fame worthy did he not vote for? Andy Pettit, Manny Ramirez. He voted for A-Rod, but not Manny, which I find very amusing.
Yeah. I guess there's a case where, like...
I guess Manny, but not A-Rod is weirder, but...
If you have a line of...
Yeah.
Like, A-Rod
He didn't vote for K-Rod. but he voted for Houston Street. Did Houston Street ever play for the Rangers? He had to have, right?
No.
He played for the A's and Angels.
A's, Rockies, Padres.
He didn't.
Angels.
He didn't. Wait, hold on. I gotta go back to that guy's column. Now what's the logic behind Houston Street? There's no way, dude. Houston Street. He's not. I can't believe it, man. This is even crazier.
Oh man.
This is absolutely insane. So, if you're explaining why you voted someone for the Hall of Fame, you would think that the first sentence would be something that isn't, he's not a Hall of Famer. There's no way, man. I swear to God, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I really have not seen it all. I'm gonna read you the full thing. I can't believe this. So, T.R. Sullivan, formerly of the Fort Worth, what was it? Fort Worth Star-Telegram and MLB.com, currently with a blog called Rangers Today, voted for Houston Street. And said, quote, "He's not a Hall of Famer, but the native Texan should get at least one taken vote as recognition for his character, competitiveness, and pretty decent career." That is outstanding. Truly the finest work. There is no shot.
I can't wait to be in the BBWAA and just vote for anybody from Connecticut.
Yeah. Why are you so bent on getting people from Texas recognition? Like, it's one of the best states at producing baseball players to begin with.
Yeah, like at least 30% of American baseball players are like from Texas.
That's insane. There's got to be other players from Texas on the ballot? Like, how did he not vote for Mike Napoli under these circumstances? Like, he had like 3 different tenures with the Rangers. He is from Florida, sure, but he gives off Texas energy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What about John Lackey?
Yeah.
He is from Texas.
And he's way better than Houston Street.
He was better than Houston Street. And he also played for the Angels, just like Houston Street. What? Dude, this... You can never tell me that you've seen it all. Because this might be the one that takes the cake. In all my years of following this process, this is the one. This guy used 10 votes, 2 of them on R.A. Dickey, who his justification was to tell a funny story about Buck Showalter.
Yep.
And Houston Street, who's from Texas.
Yep.
And he openly admitted is not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Yeah, you know.
That is something else, man.
It's something. It is something.
At least he voted for Billy Wagner. I would have personally DM'd this guy.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure Wagner's from Texas also.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. You don't even have to look it up. I can tell you absolutely he's from Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, he's from... he's from Virginia.
Oh, shit. Well, that's awkward.
Yeah. Well, he played in Houston.
All right, we're going to cut that part.
Well, yeah. So some goofy stuff happens.
That is...
in the Hall of Fame
I truly can't believe it.
Yeah.
I didn't even, I looked at the Dickey story and didn't even realize he put Houston Street there, too.
That's pretty wild.
And his justification for Houston Street is somehow even crazier.
Yeah. So shout out to...
He's not a Hall of Famer, but the native Texan should get at least one taken vote as recognition of his character, competitiveness, and pretty decent career.
Pretty decent.
You know what lands you on the Hall of Fame ballot to begin with? A pretty decent career.
Yeah. He was respectable. He was a respectable closer.
Every single person on this ballot, at the very least, had a pretty decent career. Like, Matt Cain won't get a single vote, but he had a pretty decent career. He threw a perfect game. Who else? Johnny Peralta, he won't get a single vote, but you know what? He had a pretty decent career.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that aren't even listed on the tracker because they don't even bother putting them on there. J.J. Hardy is on the ballot. He won't get a single vote, but you know what? He had a pretty decent career. Bronson Arroyo. I can't believe it, dude. I'm still processing all that.
It's shout out to TR
Sullivan.
Making some great material for Above Replacement Radio.
Crazy.
Anything more you want to get to before we wrap it up?
I think that's where you have to wrap it up.
Good stopping point.
His name is in bold on the tracker. Does that mean he's a first-time voter? Does it mean he's... I don't know what it means. I need to figure that one out. Because his name is in bold on the tracker. I feel like that would mean something because it usually does. If anything, it probably means like they didn't vote last year, but they're returning this year.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go to our YouTube channel. It's called Above Replacement Radio. Check out the video content we have presented. We have three shorts talking about different Hall of Fame candidates and the cases for them. Go check that out. If you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta, on Instagram at Chris Gianta, and follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking the Hall of Fame results and other MLB news. We will see you then.
This conversation is over.